Welcome to In the Money. I'm your host, Daniel Dent. Over the last 20 years, I've worked with families and businesses, helping them become financially savvy. And now I'm going to do the same for you. Each show, I'm going to share personal financial topics to help you make better informed financial decisions. For most people, your job is the lifeblood of your financial situation. It provides the income that pays the bills and allows you to save. We live in a mobile and global society where job competition is fierce. It's more important now than ever to be prepared and have a plan when searching for a job. Unemployment rates are around 4.7%, which is relatively low, but that equates to over 7.5 million people looking for a job. How do you set yourself apart? Joining us today is Angela Copeland, CEO and career coach at Copeland Coaching. Ms. Copeland is also a columnist, hosts a podcast, and is the author of the new book, Breaking the Rules and Getting the Job. We're sharing tips on how to search for and get the job you want. Stay tuned.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
We're discussing tips on how to search for and get the job you want. Joining us is Angela Copeland, career coach at Copeland Coaching, and author of the new book, Breaking the Rules and Getting the Job. Angela, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure, I'm a career coach. I help people find new jobs, often in different fields, more fulfilling fields often, and making more money.
That sounds great.
Yes.
So you've released a book recently, Breaking the Rules and Getting the Job. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So what motivated you to write the book?
Well, so I transitioned my own career from engineering to project management, ultimately to marketing. And I was able to do that by kind of looking at job searching like it was an adventure, like it was fun. And the book, I wrote it to kind of give new ideas for other people in order to look for a job a little differently. I mean, the online process is pretty frustrating. So the idea is that the book is there to give you some new, fresh ideas.
That's great. I think that looking at it as an adventure, that may be a different perspective because most people dread that, it seems like. But the economy's doing better, but we're still seeing expense and efficiency efforts across pretty much all industries. So companies are not wanting to hire, they're being much more conscious of salaries and personnel expense. What are the keys to successfully searching for a new job?
You know, I think one key that's very important is to not just look at the online process as the answer. You can't just apply online and assume things are going to work out. It's got to be more of like a relationship sell. The company wants to know who you are, they want to trust you before they hire you. So this is a little different than I think what we really picture in our minds. It's not just go on the internet, search for something, apply, and it just happens. But you want to be a little more entrepreneurial about it and try to get to know that hiring manager, maybe even before they have a job posted.
So how do you get to know that hiring manager? Because a lot of times what we see with companies, and I think most large corporations use now, are some type of automated or robo or technology where it starts filtering out resumes just immediately before it actually gets to a person. So you can't even get to that hiring manager or even the recruiter of the corporation until it, or you can't get past that technology piece. So how do you get to know the hiring manager?
It's a good question, and you're right. You know, a lot of the HR folks at companies will tell us, apply online, if you're a good fit, we'll call you, and they assume, you know, we assume that means something. But in reality, if you're the hiring manager, you think of people that you know first or friends of friends, like you're not really looking at those online applications unless you really just don't have anyone. So what I often recommend is that you identify a list of companies that would be ideal to work for, you know, and really research those companies. Think about what department you would work in, and then you can use sites like LinkedIn to actually figure out who is the manager or the vice president or whatever over that department, and you can actually reach out to them oftentimes through sort of online channels.
So that makes sense whether you're really younger or older, but are there any other tips if you're say a younger person and maybe you don't have that network that that a more experienced person would have?
Well, I'd say as a younger person especially, there's a couple of things you can do. One thing that I just love when you're young is you can build a website that's kind of like a portfolio of all of your information. And there are tons of tools like WordPress and Squarespace where you can go out and you can actually put your information like your resume, projects you may have worked on, say in college, recommendations you've received from other people there, so that when you do reach out to a hiring manager via, say, email, you've got sort of that extra kind of oomph there that maybe someone who's older might not have, because maybe technology is not their thing, or building a website sounds kind of intimidating.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea and a really good first step to get your name out there. What are some other first steps or next steps in that initial stage of when I decide, you know what, I'm really looking for a career change, or I'm trying to find a job? What are some of the first things that I should be looking at and doing to prepare for that?
Well, a couple of the first things, one is to really make sure that your resume is in order. Now, I don't recommend spending all your time on the resume, but it does need to be ready because you could meet a hiring manager anytime. You also want to be sure that your LinkedIn profile is up to date. You know, as much as we may want to shy away from social media, LinkedIn can be a really helpful tool. And then if you're looking to make a change, you know, really starting to identify what that change might look like and how you might start to sort of get your foot in the door in terms of having some experience that you could put on your resume in that new field.
So what if I'm starting out right now and I don't have a job, whether that's because I'm in between jobs or this is my first job? Does that change what needs to happen or how I need to prepare initially?
It is harder a little because, you know, it's easier to find a job when you have a job. That's what people always say. I would say if you don't have a job, a really great place to start is sort of within your own network. So your friends and your family who might be able to help you, who might know someone, because that sort of relationship introduction can be very helpful. Another thing to consider if you don't have a job today are these groups. They're called career transition groups or CT groups. And there are quite a few around. They are typically free. Many like churches or other sort of places of gathering hold them. And they're sort of groups for other people who are also not working. And they offer sort of free help with things like your resume and preparing for a job interview.
So it sounds like a good place to start networking, so building that network you'd mentioned earlier.
It is. I mean, especially if you're not working, it can be so hard because there's a lot of emotions that kind of come with that. And also, if you're not working, you may have less structure than you're used to. So looking for opportunities to kind of build that structure back in can be very helpful.
Okay, hold that thought. We have to take a short break, and we'll be back in a moment with Angela. Stay tuned.
How can I help my daughter with her reading?
Searching for help with Dachshund Reading.
No.
Let me try. Sarah's bright, but when she's reading, she has trouble sounding out words.
Playing world music.
What?
I give up.
Wait, I was trying to show you how Sarah feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
Join parents and experts at understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues to help your child thrive.
Hey, Hard, what's this?
That's my resignation letter.
You're resigning.
Why? Because you're constantly ignoring me. You're half as active as you used to be, and you get stuff like this. You've been putting me under a lot of pressure lately. That's why I'm ready to quit.
I forgot. I'll do better. Please.
Don't quit on me. Okay. But remember, it's not what you say. It's what you do.
Listen to your heart. Don't let it quit on you.
Let's go for a walk.
Uncontrolled high blood pressure could lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. If you're just joining us, we're talking about how to choose a new job or get the job that you want. Today we're joined by Angela Copeland, career coach at Copeland Coaching and author of the new book, Breaking the Rules and Getting the Job. Angela, before the break, we're talking about things you can do to set yourself up before you really start the job search. But you know, one of the chapters in your book that I really thought was interesting, is kind of funny. What do I want to be when I grow up? And that's a difficult question for a lot of people. So how do you help people decide what they want to be when they grow up?
Well, it is a difficult question, and I think there is really an expectation out there that you should just know, or that it should be a straight path, when it's really not. It's not unusual for someone to switch jobs every 3 to 5 years, and sometimes even careers in that time. But some of the things that we do when we're working together, one would be to outline what are some of the strengths that you bring to the table? What are things that make you good at your job that may not specifically have to do with the industry that you work in, right? And then also, what are things that you may know about outside of your current job? Like, do you happen to have a hobby of investing in real estate, even though you work at a university? Like, I've seen that particular example before. So we kind of start to look at those kind of factors, in addition, maybe what your sort of personality profile would be. And, we start to look at all those things and think of what are, say, 3 to 5 possibilities of potential jobs. And then once you kind of have those picked out, you actually go and have informational interviews with people who do those types of jobs, and ideally at their office, so you get a chance to see them. Once you start to actually go in person, you can see, gosh, this is really an environment that I don't like, or I really feel drawn to this particular thing. And it becomes much more easy to kind of narrow down what you might be interested to do.
So let's talk about that for a moment, informational interviews. Can you define what that is, and how do I get one of those set up if I'm interested in a certain area?
So I love informational interviews. They are really a casual conversation where you talk with someone about their career and you ask them questions about their job, what they do every day. It's not an opportunity to get a job. It's not a chance to tell someone that you're looking for a job and you hope they might hire you. It's really just a chance to kind of have a networking meeting. A lot of people are really open to these. You'd be surprised. And one way that you can get them pretty effectively is actually to reach out on places like LinkedIn and just tell someone, I'm a big fan of your company and what you're doing, and I was curious if you might be willing to sit down and talk with me about it.
So it really never hurts to ask, does it? It's always networking and trying to meet new people.
I think it's also all about having expectations, though, because if you send out, say, 10 cold messages, you may get 1 or 2 yeses back. And if you look at that as a failure, it may not be a positive experience. But if you can kind of put it in your mind that that's about the response rate you should expect, then it makes it much more positive.
So I think for extroverted people, that's probably pretty natural to go out and ask. What about for introverted people? How do you get them to a comfort level where they can go out and reach out to a stranger like that?
Sure. Well, I can tell you I'm an introvert, and I just basically for myself really had sort of a system. Like when I would go to a networking event, I'd think, I'm going to get 5 new business cards today. I'm going to exchange cards with 5 people. I'm going to meet 5 new people, and afterward I'm going to email them all a follow-up. And I'm going to also send a LinkedIn request. But I think it's about setting goals for yourself and setting those numbers. The more that you can kind of push yourself in that direction, the easier it becomes.
I wanted to touch on LinkedIn and some of the other social media as well, because sometimes people kind of confuse LinkedIn and some of the profiles that quite frankly just look like a train wreck. So I know you have a lot of experience with that. Can you give us some tips around there? Some of the things that you see that people should be aware of when they're creating their profile, or maybe should go back and look at?
LinkedIn is really important. One thing that's very important is that you have a picture. Many people don't want to put their photo, and it's unfortunate because oftentimes there's more than one person that has your name, and so you want to be able to let people know that it's you. You want it to be a photo just of you, smiling, of your face. So you want to stay away from photos with friends and family, photos in outfits that are maybe from a party or inappropriate. That's kind of the first thing people see. And then you really want to fill it out. Many people, it's kind of incomplete, like they may not have the bio in the top in the summary section. You want to be sure that each section is filled out. And then last, you want to reach out to those people that you've worked with before and ask them for written recommendations, because those recommendations on LinkedIn are very powerful.
Okay, so no pictures with me and my kitty cat, Mr. Fluffy Bunny, or anything crazy like that.
No,
right?
Mr. Fluffy Bunny.
Okay, oh, good, okay. I'm gonna have to go change mine then.
Yeah.
One thing I did want to touch on, because we had talked about this before the show. Can you talk about the importance of living below your means and what how that impacts your job search or your potential job search later on?
Yes, it's so important. So many of the people that come in and talk to me who are frustrated and looking to find a new job, one thing that's really difficult is that they're so dependent on their monthly income that if something's really going wrong at work, say their boss is very abusive, they can't get away because they've got to have that money. So if you can have your fixed expenses, be fairly low, then you may have higher variable expenses from time to time, but if times really got tough, you could cut back quickly and you're not so dependent on that job. In addition, having an emergency fund is super helpful, because whether you decide that you want to leave a job or whether it's not your decision but you're suddenly out of a job, it's very, very stressful to not have the financial resources to really take care of yourself and your family.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You see people that get trapped because as they get increases,
Yes.
or raises or bonuses, they start increasing their lifestyle. And unfortunately for them, they get trapped into wherever they are, and they just lose that flexibility, it seems like.
Right, because the more that you make, the fewer jobs there are that pay that much, right? So the higher you go in your career, the harder it is to find a replacement job. I've seen this with a lot of C-level executives who, either quit or are asked to leave, and it could take them a year or two to find a similar replacement job.
Yeah, very important to have that money set aside, that cash reserve set aside. We always say at least 6 months. Given the environment that we're in, the economic environment, the employment environment, it's not a bad idea to have at least a year these days, I would say. So let's say that I've followed all of your advice. I've got my profile pictures corrected. I've got my resume up to speed. I'm doing some networking and things like that, getting out of my comfort zone. What are some other ways that I should kick off my job search and put myself in a better area or a better place to have opportunities?
I think especially if you're thinking about moving into a new area, it's looking for ways to get experience in that area. So for example, when I first moved into marketing, I wanted to know more about digital marketing. So I started going to nonprofits and volunteering my time to help local nonprofits with their digital marketing. So essentially you're kind of building up this new brand that'll help you move forward in your job search.
Okay, we have to take another short break. We'll be right back with Angela Copeland.
Right, mi cariño. So like I said, everything I learned about cooking, I learned from Grandma's empanadas. Shall we go again?
Yep.
Mix beef with the onions with the peppers with the paprika with the garlic with the oregano with the cumin. Got it?
Got it.
Throw on the olives, stir, season, stir again, pour out the flour, roll out the dough, make a circle, drop in a fistful of filling, fold over, press down, and ta-da!
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush is easier, and it could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain.
So who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice. And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
We couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
You are watching Germantown Municipal Television, your source for everything Germantown.
Welcome back to In the Money. We're discussing getting the job you want or changing your career. Before we left, Angela, we were talking about different ways to create opportunities for yourself and networking we discussed. Let's say that your networking is going well. One of the questions that always comes up when you start letting people know that you're looking for a job is, well, hey, what do you want to do? And a lot of people get caught up or get stumped on how to answer that question. So how do you recommend answering that question?
It's a great question. So essentially this is your elevator pitch. It's tell me who you are, tell me about yourself. And the thing that's so important is that you're really specific. Now there may be 5 things that you're thinking of doing, but if you tell that person all 5 of those things, they can no longer help you, right? They're confused, they're not really sure what you want, they just think you're just kind of wishy-washy. But think about what it is that they do and who they may know and what area they may be able to help you with, and narrow your selection down so that you're talking about one particular thing, one particular part of your background, one goal. That's when you can get someone to help you. So be specific. The number one mistake people make is being too general.
Yeah, what I hear a lot is people say, well, you know, I really want to do anything or anything in the financial realm. So should you focus on the skill sets or maybe what it is you'd like to do in an ideal job, or is even that being too broad, or should you throw out a specific type of job? How do you answer those?
So it
those type of
depends,
questions?
right? Like if the person is talking to you and they know you work in the financial industry, maybe they say the finance industry in general or personal financial services. But if you know the person may be able to help you more in marketing, you may not necessarily need to say the industry, right? But you want to think again, what is the thing that this person can help me with? So being as specific as you can in a way that's going to help them sort of help you, so to speak.
So it's really being intentional. I think it takes some thought prior to actually being in that situation, and then it's not always the same exact pitch every time or elevator speech, right?
Oh, absolutely not. And it's a real mistake to think, well, I can do anything and I don't want to sort of close myself off from opportunities, when in reality, the more broad that you are when you answer that question, the less the person can actually help you.
I want to go back to networking, kind of along the same lines, but in the book you share a story about your trip to Europe and being an introvert. I think this will resonate well with people out there.
Right.
But you go there, you don't know anybody, but you decide, you know what, I'm going to make some contacts here. Can you share that story with us?
Yeah, you know, I kind of have a problem. I think I just look at everything as like a business opportunity to meet new people. And I really enjoy meeting like local people in a place and learning about sort of what's going on locally. So, you know, I've traveled a number of times alone, sort of solo backpacking style travel. And in countries like Sweden, I've gone salsa dancing because there are no tourists doing salsa in Stockholm, right? And you get a chance to really meet some locals. So I do things like that. I also look at meetup groups and go to IT type meetups to learn what's going on in the IT community or the startup community. You know, in Australia, I actually went to an appathon where a bunch of developers get together for the weekend and build a mobile app. And it's pretty amazing. I've met a lot of great people who I've actually stayed in touch with. I've even had clients go and interview well, the one in Australia, I had a client go and interview there, someone in Memphis. So it was pretty amazing.
So really a lot of it is again, being an introvert, just putting yourself out there and trying some new things, which is not always the easiest thing to do.
It's not easy, and you just can't expect it to work every time. You just go and you just see what will happen.
Another thing from your book, you equate job hunting to dating. So what makes that similar? I think that's a funny comparison.
Yeah, job hunting is a lot like dating, but the thing is, when it comes to dating, we never go on a first date and just sit at the table and think, God, I hope this person's gonna marry me, right? But we do that in a job interview. We go in and think, gosh, I really hope they're gonna hire me, and we stop thinking about what we want, and we stop asking our questions. And so if we could look at it as more of a two-way street where the company's going to get something, but we're going to get something too, we're able to have a much more positive interview experience and learn more about the company so we can make a better decision for ourselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you interview for a job, you just naturally going, come on, choose me, choose me.
Right.
And for whatever reason, we lose that confidence at times. So how do you, when you're working with one of your clients, how do you get them to get over that hump and maintain their confidence as they go through that process?
Well, I think of it like practice, and the more that you can go and interview and do job interviews, you know, the easier that it becomes, and the less pressure you have on one particular interview, the easier it is. So it's doing many interviews and doing it repeatedly, you know, and just sort of thinking not every job interview is going to result in a job offer, but I'm going to keep trying because I'm going to find that opportunity that's a right fit for me.
It's rare to see this these days, but at times you'll run across people that have been with the same company for a long time. They're not used to going out there and interviewing and doing some of these other things. So how do you work with those type people that really haven't had to go outside of their own company for, you know, however long, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
Yeah, it can be terrifying because maybe they've been there 15 years and the job that they initially landed, they got through a friend. So maybe they've never interviewed at all. So one thing we do is we practice. We do things like informational interviews. We get them to go to, you know, networking events. There are a lot of things that you can do to sort of prepare. I also often will recommend that someone like listen to music before they go into a job interview, or, you know, pick out all their clothes the night before, or be sure that they eat a great breakfast. Just the things that you would do to be your best self, and then just relax and, you know, give it your best shot.
Yeah, I think that's a great way. Control all those things that you can control, and you can hopefully walk in there with some level of comfort. You had mentioned the informational interviews again. I think that's a good way too to find out what different industries pay, right? So Are there other ways that you can research pay before you decide, you know what, I'm going to go off and do X, Y, and Z?
That's such a great question. The best thing about job searching right now is how much transparency is available with the internet. So websites like Glassdoor.com and Salary.com are the ones I would recommend. Glassdoor allows people to anonymously report how much they make at their current company. So you can look by job title, by company. Salary.com gives you sort of like an aggregated salary number by location. So it's just excellent information to have.
So we're running out of time, but really quick, money is not always the key thing that people should focus in on. It's what we tend to move toward, but there's other benefits, whether it's vacation or flex time, things like that. How do you coach people around that negotiation part of it?
It's really about thinking what's the most important to you, prioritizing. You only really want to pick one or two things to ask for more of. It could be salary, it could be vacation. It's surprising how easy it is to get extra vacation. And so often we think, well, I'm just going to get 2 weeks. You can often negotiate for 3 or 4 weeks if you try. So again, it's just about what's most important to you.
Okay. And finally, how do people reach you or find out more information? Because I know you have different tips and things on your website as well.
Absolutely. Visit my website at copelandcoaching.com, or you can check out my podcast on iTunes or Stitcher by searching for Copeland Coaching.
Angela, thank you so much for coming out and joining us today. Politicians throw around unemployment numbers left and right. A friend of mine says the only time unemployment rate is important is when it's your job that's downsized. And that statement couldn't be more accurate. Just like all other aspects of your financial life, prepare yourself in advance with the tips we've shared. Angela's book covers far more topics and in much greater depth than we had time for today, including interviewing, what to do after the interview, much more on negotiating and how to close the deal. It's a great book that will guide you to your next job, and I encourage everyone to pick it up on Amazon or your local bookstore. That's all the time we have today. Thanks to Angela Copeland, and thank you for watching. If you'd like to see more shows, follow us on YouTube or Facebook at Germantown Municipal Television. You can also visit our website at www.gmtvonline.org. And remember, each person's situation is unique. Before making any decision, speak to a professional, like Angela, to see if our discussions today are in your best interest. We'll see you next month. I'm Daniel Dent, and now you are in the money.